For formalized scales, weights, and measures, I need government tech 10 and 5 magistrates. And I get very large bonuses for both. Expanded bureaucracy, by the way, I would not do because of the minus 5% national tax modifier until later on, and that becomes insignificant. Because the 0.25 yearly magistrates, although it might not sound like a lot, is actually a lot and can really help. But only do that, I would say, later on when you actually desperately always need magistrates to continue building stuff. And over time, there'll be different provincial stuff, and that'll pop up. That'll pop up here in like a little red banner, and it'll pop up here as well. Colonies, I don't have any colonies. You can see, sort them. Charts, so I can see religion, the production. So right now, mostly wool. My core versus non-core. Hopefully, this entire thing will be red. Not 50% of it blue and red, but maybe just a little bit blue. And my cultures. So these are all accepted cultures of Castilian, so that's good. Technology group, I can see my efficiency, my real efficiency. I don't know what the difference between efficiency and real efficiency is, though. Oh, maybe if you have like extra modifiers that help with production efficiency, maybe it'll show up in real efficiency. Can have ideas. Yeah. Oh, and this will like show you like land morale and things like that, based on land tech. National armies. Just shows you my armies. If you guys remember, I got like 6,000 and 1,000 guy. You can see who the general is. I mean, the name of them, sorry, not the general, and what they have. Same thing with navies. By the way, for these two, these are absolutely useless because you have them right here. I can click right here where they are. Province, oh, I already showed you guys province decisions. Army regiments, really useless again. Ships, yeah, hull size. You can see the galley. I was talking about hull size way back when. So you can see galleys only have a hull size of 12, while carracks, which are big ships, have a hull size of 20. And although galleys, for the meantime, might be a bit more powerful than carracks, especially in speed, they really do not. They cannot take as much damage. Okay, income overview. This is kind of important, I would say. You don't actually have to look at it, but it is kind of important to understand the game, how the game works. You can click here, so we get this to the top. 38%. So 38% of my income is coming from taxation. 22% from gold. That 5% at 5.5 I'm making from that one province. That's how good gold is, by the way, guys. Gold is really good. 22% of it is coming from that. Tolls from coming through my my center of trade. See, that's why center of trades are good. So I'm getting 4.2 from that. Production, harbor fees. Harbor fees is another thing, part of center of trade. I think tolls is how much. I don't know the difference between tolls and harbor fees, except that both of them have to do with your center of trade that you control. I think harbor fees depends on the amount of merchants, while tolls is the amount of goods, amount of provinces that are connected to your center of trade. I think that's how it's done. Trade is only one. I was telling you for my 3 merchants in Andalusia and only my 2 merchants in Lisboa, I'm yeah, trade's 3%, getting 1 this year. Next year it will change though. This will all change. And then manufacturing. As you can see, all of this is 000, like census tax. Census tax, I have not had it yet because I have to get to 1st January, and then it'll show up as last year. You don't get it every month, so it'll always be 0 for this year. It only happens once on the 1st of January. And this will usually be a very large part of your income, the census tax. And then you have different ones, interest, peace, subsidies, tariffs, which I've all talked about. Tribute, vassals, yeah. Oh, vassals. A great thing about vassals is that they give you a portion of their income, of their total income, directly to you. That's why vassals are a great thing. And it'll show up here. So having a lot of vassals is really great because they'll give you a part of their income every year. Exact opposite, this is costs, so 87% has gone to advisors so far, army maintenance, because I've spent the most on them. Remember, I was hiring. If you remember, I was hiring my great men of the court. Um, speed up. Yeah, so that's already been spent. So army maintenance, I haven't spent on an army yet. Fleets, bribes, building costs, whatever. They'll show you here. It's good to keep. These two are good to keep an eye on. Loans, if I have any loans, this is also very useful. If I have several loans, the expiry date, the amount, the interest I have to pay. Center of trade, I already showed you guys this. Income, we haven't started the game yet. Inflation, what is inflation? How much inflation your country has. Trade goods. Who is asking me about supply and demand? This is the Europa Universalis version of supply and demand. It's a lot more important in Victoria too, of course, but Europa Universalis is also important. Someone asked me above about supply and demand. This is where it's all at. Oh, someone asked a question. Loans, if you don't pay them on time, takes out a new loan still. If you don't pay them on time, you just extend it and the interest rate increases. You only take out another new loan if you go below 0. Again. So, for example, I take out a loan of 128. And when the loan is due, I only have 120. I'm short by $8. I won't be able to pay it back, and I have to wait another 5 years, and this time it'll be more expensive. Doesn't mean I take out another loan, but it means that my interest for that original loan is going to increase, and I'm going to have to wait another 5 years to pay it back. Smoke too much? Does that answer your question? Okay. Well, someone was asking me about supply and demand. I'll answer it anyway. It's very important. Currently, this is the price for everything. Okay. These are all the goods in the game: wool, wine, tobacco, ivory, naval supplies, fish, cotton, copper, Chinaware, whatever. And they're all equated by a price, which depends on how much money you get from production. So fur right now has a very high price. And if we hover over it, we can see that Lubeck is trading through a lot of it, has a lot of the trade. Novgorod, 30%. You can think of Russia. There's a lot of trade already in that. Astrakhan, Mexico, Nanjing, China, wine, so on and so forth. So this is the price. So obviously fur's on top, while gold, by the way, the reason why it's 0 is because it's not traded. In fact, I don't even know why it's included here. But gold is 0. While grain is 2.4. Slaves, okay, you might think, why are slaves so cheap? I'll get into that in a second. But grain, wool, naval supplies, these things which are like fish even, these things which are very common, their price is going to be very low, and over time the price will go down even more. What makes up the price though is the supply and demand. This is basic economics, if any of you guys are taking economics class. The reason why fur has such a high price is because it's got 101% demand, while the supply is very low, 36%. If I go now and conquer Canada, okay, with all of its fur, the supply is dramatically going to increase, the demand is going to decrease, and the price is going to decrease as well. The price will go down. So you want to always be at the cutting edge of the goods you own. Gold again doesn't count, so forget about gold here. Grain again, supply is 200. You're always going to have a very high demand for grain. Everyone needs to eat grain, right? But the supply is so much that the price is diminished. Fish the same, cloth the same. The big ones though, later on as you start exploring the world, your people are going to start wanting tea, they're going to start wanting spices, ivory, Chinaware, coffee, sugar. Right now the demand is very low, but also the supply is very low. So as demand gets higher, it's going to be your job, if you want to play that way, to go out and find provinces that make these goods and conquer them, coerce them, control their trade through their trade routes, and you'll get the most from this current price. You'll get the boost. Base price basically means, you see gold is base price is 0 because it's not traded. Naval supplies is 5, slaves is 5. The reason why slaves are fairly cheap You would think that maybe slaves would be a good commodity to have. In reality, though, slaves were a cheap commodity in comparison to ivory, in comparison to tea or China ware, so they don't really shape up. The demand will go up eventually, though. Cotton, fish, fur, grain. I mean, these are the base prices. While more expensive stuff like tobacco, spices, salt, iron, copper, they have a higher base price, which will increase the current price here, depending on, again, supply and demand. So just because tobacco has a base price of 15, doesn't mean that current prices also has to be 15 or above, because the supply is because the demand is extremely low. Sorry. Yeah, so someone's actually saying 1 barrel of tea would cost as much as 3 slaves. So I've had people ask me, isn't slaves a great thing to have? I mean, it is. I mean, you do get some money from it, but generally speaking, it's not that great. And by the way, if anyone from Paradox who's making EU4 is hearing this, slaves need to have a much larger role in Europa Universalis IV. Like slaves are totally. I mean, in an age where slavery was such an important part between Europe and South America, Brazil, the Caribbean, Afro-Antilles, and North America, slaves are totally overseen here. Like they're barely even mentioned. You can outlaw slavery as a decision later on, which just decreases your infamy. It's really nothing. So EU4 has to have more on slaves. Okay, so that's that. Trade goods. Strategic goods, market share. Yeah, this is the same thing. Like what the strategic effect of it is. So China ware gives you legitimacy of plus 5%. And so wine, we have 11% of market share. So we want to have the most of market share. So right now, trade leader is Genoa. So right now they get minus 25% stability cost modifier because they are the trade leader of it. Aragon can become, but because they're trading through Liguria, remember guys, they are part of the Genoese trade league, so they're all trading through Liguria. So even though Aragon is making the most wine, they are not the trade leaders, and therefore they are not getting the bonus. They are not getting the bonus, the minus 25% here, because they do not have, because they don't control because all their wine is going towards Genoa, and yeah, and because they're part of a trade league, which means that they have to trade through Genoa. Wool. Someone's saying once you get a lot of provinces where cotton is produced, you will get a lot more demand for slaves. Oh, really? I did not know that. Interesting. Okay, yeah. So if you have, and I guess this also goes perhaps for sugar, I suppose. Do you know, or tobacco as well? I mean, all these New World tobacco, cotton, sugar, these were all manned by slaves very heavily. So I guess that's what drives up the demand for slaves. So again here, so currently trade leaders Timwards, so for wool, so they get the minus 10% ship cost, which I find hilarious because the Timwards are landlocked pretty much, and they've never really had a navy before. It's kind of funny. They're not landlocked, they're bordering the Arabian Sea, but it's just funny nonetheless. Gaul has nothing, although, as you might imagine, Inca guys, the Incas, production leader, that's why it makes them such a good place to go directly to conquer. So on and so forth. You can look at this yourselves. So friendly relations, the knights, I guarantee them. This is like all your diplomatic relations with everyone. Who I have casus belli against. So I got one against Granada, Hassa, Hejaz, and Najd, which is the Holy War. And Granada has a casus belli against us. We cannot see what that casus belli is. You have to click on them. Yeah, so they have the Holy War casus belli against us on Castile. So we have Holy War against them, they have Holy War against us. By the way, you have to be bordering. I believe you have to be bordering the person, the people to have Holy War. And this shows countries we've embargoed, countries that have embargoed us, and truce. Holy War, yeah, so this again shows us even more. Holy War. Some casus bellis will disappear after some time, so this is duration. It'll show us what we have. All the wars that are happening around the world at all the time, the score, defender, attacker. So you can see the Timurids